was also to keep your kundalini, the energy in your spine, flowing so that your brain would be open for information. So while you were resting, you were recharging, like recharging your battery. Spinal cord, perfectly intact, okay? I think here, watch this here. Many Europeans and American universities and museums separate Egypt from the rest of Africa. They're admitting it here. Nobody else will admit it. Presenting it either in relationship to European culture or Greek and Roman. And, okay, this phenomenal people, Southern Africa. These Eurocentric or isolationist approach are modern. The Greek historian Herodotus, the so-called father of history, and look, they even said so-called, because if he's coming 4,000 years after Kemet, obviously he's not the father of history, okay? Fully acknowledged that the African aspect of Egyptian civilization when he visited the Nile Valley in the 5th century. So he only came in the 5th century, and he saw that it was all black. It was not until 1840s that a group of American authors writing to justify the Atlantic slave trade. So you have to understand, all these museums came about when Africans were being enslaved, coming from Western Africa. So if I'm enslaving Africa, saying they're inferior, I can't say that y'all started civilization, y'all built pyramids, y'all got the greatest monuments in the world. So that's when they start to paint Egypt white. The Greeks never painted Egypt white. The ancient Romans never painted Egypt white. Okay? It's when we got what we call the modern Renaissance in Europe. And that happened after the Moors came in and set up universities in Spain. The Moors conquered Europe in 711 CE, the Common Era. And they set up the first universities in Europe. And so from 711 all the way to 1200 is the first time first Europeans, after studying with Africans, then set up their universities. And then in 1492, that's when the Africans were kicked out of Europe. The Moors were expelled, and the Jews were kicked out. Okay? So now, I just wanted to give you a background of why all that racism exists in these institutions, because when they built them, slavery was happening. And you can't have this contradiction in the schools from these institutions, because remember, these institutions are state funded and federal funded. So they got to perpetuate the same lie. Atlantic slavery urged the Egyptians were a separate population with no relationship to Africans. They did not believe that Africans could have produced one of the world's most sophisticated civilizations. Although prominent African-American intellectuals, including David Walker, has anybody ever read the David Walker Appeal? Written in the 1840s. The most powerful, we don't have politicians today that's as powerful as David Walker was in the 1800s, 20 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. Frederick Douglass, listen to his speech on the 4th of July, of why we shouldn't celebrate the 4th of July. Nobody still has come more powerful than that. W.E.B. Du Bois, he is actually the first African who graduated from one of those European institutions with a PhD. And he wrote his thesis that the ancient Egyptians were black. This is 1880s, y'all, 1880s, 1890s. So I'm just letting you know, there was a lot of people on this wave. Challenge the notion such ideas continue to dominate how Egypt was presented. And then since the 1960s, Western trained Egyptologists have begun to rethink many of their ideas. Partly because of the efforts of Africans and African-American scholars who continue to challenge outdated ideas. These modern scholars use the same name ancient Egyptians used for their kingdoms, Kemet. So again, none of the museums there, you won't see Kemet up in there, you won't see that word in there, you're only going to see Egypt. Or the black land. Now we made a distinction. We're going to show you what land, the word for land is. It doesn't mean the black land. See, anybody can live in the black land. But if I say the black community, like right now, this is the black community. You see that? It's obviously who's up in here. They will tell you, so I just want to be able to, for you to clearly understand, they try to say, oh, well, once we start reading the Medu Neter, then they say, okay, we can't bamboozle them no more. They know that Egypt, they know that Kemet means black. We're going to say black land. Because we're going to say the fertile Nile was the black land and the desert was the red land. So we got black land, red land. And no. Okay, but that's just that determinative is a city which represents a community. So it's not talking about the soil. But they will mention some of our teachers now. At least I think they will. They talk, okay, well, Diop proved that the Medu Neter is an African language. I thought they mentioned their names. Contemporary African, important Egyptian culture, including divine kingship, divine notion, ancestors. Debate, the influence reached West Africa remains open. Assumption, culture. Okay, I don't know, maybe they took their